Singing from the same hymn sheet, or are they? The Roman Catholic Church has been dogged by scandals involving sexual abuse by priests. And last week's landmark conference at the Vatican brought hope that the Church was ready to tackle the decades-long problem. The pontiff even promised that abusers will be brought to justice and cover-ups would no longer be tolerated. All he's come up with is a list of 21 reflection points. Now, this is meant to be the basis for new anti-abuse procedures, and victims are not happy.
But I think what's important about what's happened here is that you have, for the first time, the bishops from across the world gathering together to try and find ways to respond to this crisis, to ensure it doesn't happen again, to make sure there's guidelines on accountability, there's the new laws, and there's concrete steps that are being taken. And I think the fact there was this meeting in of itself is very significant.
So is the Catholic Church ready to tackle sexual abuse within its ranks, or was the recent Vatican conference an attempt to clean up the Church's image? We have in the studio Archbishop William Slattery of the Catholic Churches Pretoria Diocese, William Segodisho, a victim of abuse by a priest, and Miranda Jordan from Women and Men Against Child Abuse. Good evening. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Let me start off with you, William Segodisho. I mean, you have been a victim. What did you make about the outcome of that meeting? Was it enough?
You know, when first I heard of this coming conference, even from the start, I've learned to be very skeptical about what the attitude of the Church, whether they are serious or not about the issue of child abuse within the Church. It is shocking indeed that today when we speak of the Church and sexual abuse, those two words should not be coming from the same breath, if you know what I'm saying. I must say that I can't say I was disappointed, because I really did not expect anything beyond what has happened so far. My feeling is that, speaking from experience, there's been a lot of lip service being paid by the Church officials, and it is very sad for me that the Pope, having called for this conference, has not come up with anything concrete, has not committed.
What went wrong there? I mean, he had this opportunity, and I mean, does he think everyone's stupid? I mean, what a waste of time.
No, really and truly, this is a very definite step in our reaction to what has been said is a dreadful crime.
From the lowest bar possible.
From the lowest bar possible. We hate it. It's an absolute disgrace, and it's a shame for everybody, and the Church wants to do all in its power to eradicate it root and branch. Now, it's true maybe that you might feel like that it's still more words rather than more actions. But remember, it's only since the beginning of this century, since 2002 and that a lot of the nations have introduced protocols. If you look at the statistics, the number of offences is much, much, much reduced. During the 1900s, 1970s, 80s, 90s, there was a lot, say 3 or 4% of church personnel could be accused of abuse. And it took a long time for the Church to react, to see the seriousness of it. There was concealment of it as well, we must confess that. There is a shame involved in that. But now that it has become not only a church issue, but a society, a world issue, everybody is becoming aware of child abuse, which is a terrible thing.
Okay, but can I just say, I mean, I've been reporting on the story for years and years and years. It's the same story, absolutely nothing's moved. And, you know, there's just so much talk that can be had when you actually need to get in there and, I mean, I don't involve the police, because I know that they're not involved. Do something.
No, the police are involved. You take our own protocol here in this country. Let us say a case comes to the bishop. The first thing he does, he sends down a person within 24 hours, a designated person, to interview that situation and to draw conclusions if there is a case to be answered. Yes, there is a case to be answered.
If I may interject there. Yeah. In my case, how come then, when this was reported, I never had any contact with anybody from the church within that 24 hours?
But that was in the 1990s.
But now, in October last year, we held a press conference. I spoke out about this. I've still, to date, not been contacted by anybody from the church.
But even if it's 1990, I mean, rape is not acceptable then or now.
Absolutely, and we need to put the law of the country and our constitutional law above the law of the church. And what we would have really liked to have seen, I mean, there were many bishops and cardinals who were there who have been covering up, and they, in fact, should, first of all, not have been part. It felt very hypocritical that they were even part of the conference. I'm speaking as a Catholic and a human rights activist and child rights activist, that they shouldn't have been there, and that priests who do this and who cover up should be named. They should be brought out into the public. They should be facing courts of law, and they should be facing...
But what happens is that they could just get moved to another country.
Absolutely, and you had Cardinal Marx from Germany speaking about files being destroyed. This is unacceptable. The files need to be given to the Catholics and to the people of the various countries, and a church is its congregation, and without its congregation, it does not exist. One thing that we were also very upset as an organization was that the Pope did not himself meet with the victims, but rather let other bishops meet. And we just think that if you're going to make this a priority and you're going to lead by example, the Pope should have met with those victims and heard their harrowing stories, and then looked at how he was going to deal with this. But we do need concrete steps. Whether you, as Christians, as Catholics, we need to see that the man at the top is dealing decisively with this, and that when we're going to see defrocking, we're going to see names, we're going to see that there are no more cover-ups and that files are not destroyed.
It just makes you realize how many people are involved doing it, the fact that they just can't move it on. I mean, they must be protecting their own, which just boggles the mind about how many people are abusing children in the church.
It goes all the way to the top. You know, you can take the incidents, the case of the Cardinal McCarrick in America. That's why this is like a protection racket of some sort. It's an unwritten rule within the church to say that we will protect our own. You see, the institution is more important to the church than the victims. You can now, no, let me just put in something. The church now, I've learned of late that they have centers where priests go for counseling, and they have got over 20 of them in America itself, but not one single center where victims, which is supported by the church, Archbishop, where victims go to. So what does that tell me as a victim?
Look, to clarify a few things that have been said. First of all, Pope Francis always makes a point of speaking with victims himself. Every year he does something like 10 or 12 visits around the world. He always slots in a time speaking with victims. The law of each country this time conference was represented by the president of the bishops' conference. They were not offenders who went to this meeting, as you indicated. They were very, very, very good bishops who are in charge and presidents of conferences. They have no offences against any one of them. Every one of them was told before going there, interview many of the victims if you can find them in your particular country, spend time with them, and also at the conference itself, representations were made by victims. The Catholic Churches
they did all that research, and then they still come up with something that's so bland and offensive?
Well, what they come up with is that, look, we have to take absolute steps. First of all, the victim must be protected, must be given every opportunity.
No, that doesn't happen.
Well, it does happen. It does happen.
It hasn't happened in my case.
Yeah, your case happened.
I only meet you now. I've never met you, the Archbishop. Have you ever spoken to me?
Never.
As Archbishop?
Never saw you before.
Have I ever spoken to any official of the church?
You're here in Johannesburg, and you have many people to speak to. And the Jesuits are dealing with your case.
Yes, they are now. After,
they are. What you said, there was no dealing. They are dealing with you.
They only dealt with it, Archbishop, after we held a press conference exposing it. That was the first time that they contacted William to start discussing this properly. And in fact, originally, it wasn't the priest who was actually accused that contacted him. And we had to put a lot of pressure for this to happen. And just to say, Archbishop, I mean, yes, I know the Pope has contacted other victims, but he didn't in Rome this time. And that would have sent such a positive signal out, and such so that victims would have felt that we're right there at the top, and we are going to be dealt with. And I want to talk about the confessional. And the confessional cannot be a place that protects people who commit crimes against children.
Absolutely.
It just can't be.
Absolutely.
But that needs to be, Archbishop, said by the Pope himself. This is who people are looking to guide them. And we need those firm commitments by him to say that there are certain crimes, and particularly crimes against children and sexual crimes that last decades and are intergenerational. They affect generations going down the line, that these will be dealt with, and that there will be certain you can confess and to certain crimes, but certainly not those that have lifelong consequences.
You're absolutely true about that.
Sorry, because the message from the top is really that very little is going to be done. You know, I mean, what happened to your priest? Where is he? And
well, I have since had a Skype meeting with Father Bill McKittin, where he got to apologize to me personally, and I must say that this time around, I welcome the attitude of the church. I wish they would have done it the same way, long back when I first reported this, long before I became in this situation where I was so frustrated and so humiliated all the time. And if this could be, I mean, we are all striving for zero tolerance. Yeah. For these kind of things. This should not happen inside the church.
Okay, Archbishop, what can and should be done now by individual churches, by priests, by those overseeing them? What sort of measures need to be taken to send out the message that it's okay to send your children to church?
And to school, because, you know, for history, we educated half the children of the Western world, and they were all safe with us. This is a terrible scandal for us, too. The victim is the first person we must think about. We must make absolutely sure that they are safe. Confession. Anyone who uses confession in order to, and that's the very reason McCarrick has been defrocked now, because he solicited one person in confession 40 years ago. So he has been defrocked. This is a terrible crime in the Catholic Church. Anyone who does anything like this. We totally agree with what you're saying there. But we always work with the civic authorities when a clear case comes through. We have to protect the victim. We have to accompany the victim. Now, I agree with you. When your case happened in the 1980s and 90s, we were only working towards that. In fact, this issue of child abuse on a world level, on a church level, has only really emerged. Even governments didn't have laws adequately covering this until now.
So this might be resolved in maybe 40 years' time? I don't know.
No, it is resolved now. Well, when humanity disappears, it will be resolved. You know what human beings are like.
I think it should stop becoming something that's attractive to paedophiles, you know, for a start. Because they
Absolutely.
go in there, they know nothing's going to happen to me, and boy, how many victims
a lot is going to happen to them.
And we can't be blaming this on homosexuality. We can't be blaming this
on homosexuality.
But it was brought up again, and we can't be doing any kind of victim blaming. We can't be saying that
We're not doing that.
It is coming out, Archbishop, in many articles and by other cardinals, by nuns. There was a Nigerian nun who spoke of the abuse of nuns. I mean, I'm only particularly talking about the abuse of children, but it's well known, it's well documented. So what we need, Archbishop, is a clear and concise way forward with actual recommendations that are actually going to happen. We understand this is one of the oldest religions. We understand that a lot is going to have to change, and it's not going to change overnight. But it can't just be what we feel was a very big PR campaign to appease a lot of Catholics in the world and to say that we are taking this seriously forward. We need to know the number of priests that are going to be defrocked, not just one or two here, but there are hundreds in every country. There are thousands of victims in every country. The Catholic Church has paid out millions of this. This needs to stop. That part needs to stop. What needs to happen is, this happens, we are going to lay a charge. We support you. We support your family. It is not a shame. And also to know that the 90-odd% of priests who do not commit these crimes actually need to make that happen. Because what's happening is the Catholic Church is falling down because of 7 or 8 or 9%.
Can we get
4 or
confirmation
3%.
that this is going to be taken seriously?
This is
really seriously?
this is, as you can see, the Pope is not a PR exercise. This is destroying the very heart of the Church. The Pope knows that. It's a spiritual thing as well as a political thing. It's a thing that we are totally committed to eradicating. There's nothing worse than destroying the life of a child. And many people's, my brother here, his life too has been deeply scarred by what has happened to him. All we can do is apologize to him and try and meet him where he is today. But at the same time, this is a very serious business for the Catholic Church. Do you think we enjoy this? No. This is terrible. You know, and we're trying to destroy, we're trying to do something about it. And it's not 9%, it's less than 4%, less than in any other church.
They need to be rooted out of the church.
The
You're right.
Australian Commission said 7%. Other studies have shown 8 or 9.
We're going to have to leave it there. Archbishop William Slattery, William Segodisho and Miranda Jordan, thank you very much.